Company of Heroes 2 is the sequel to the highest rated RTS of all time. It takes place on the Eastern Front, which is one of the most vicious and epic battles that human history has ever been exposed to.
Nobody really knows about it. 13 of the 15 bloodiest battles of World War II were fought on the Eastern Front. The losses are in the millions. The scale of it is something that you haven't seen before. The story is something you haven't seen before. In Company of Heroes 2, gamers can expect a lot of different things than they would have seen in the first version. The Essence Engine 3.0 is a great engine. One of the things that we wanted to up was the feeling of connecting you to the world.
The new line of sight system we're calling True Sight in Company of Heroes 2 introduces something that we don't think has ever been done quite this way before for RTS. True Sight basically takes into account things that would block your line of sight and represents that in a dynamic fog of war system. So as you come around a corner, if there's a wall that you wouldn't be able to see over, you don't get to see what's behind that. And that opens up a ton of tactical and strategic options for flanking, for sneak attacks, for ambushes.
So it really makes you think a whole lot differently about how you move about the world.
You talk about little things that make a big difference, and vaulting is one of those little things that makes a huge difference. In Company of Heroes 1, you had no opportunity to go around small obstacles, and this is something that I think that everyone would expect that an infantry soldier would be able to do, is jump over something as high as their waist. And it really prevented players from executing strategies that they wanted to.
A great example of how we use vaulting in Company of Heroes 2 is that we wanted to get a visual language of any passable wall being something that you could climb over. If you pair that up with cold tech, there's a lot of situations in the game where the long way around, you're probably not going to make it. If you vault, now you can get to a location where you can take cover, stop freezing, or get somewhere where you might be able to get heat and warm up again.
The weather was an incredible force to deal with for both sides. It was something that would absolutely cripple an army if they were unprepared or if they got caught off guard. And it's something that we've really tried to capture in the gameplay experience of COH2.
So cold tech really delivers to players the choices that come about as a result of harsh winters. You've got ice, you've got deep snow, and you've got vicious cold. And each of those bring a new tactical element for players.
If you bring your vehicles onto the ice, if somebody bombs the ice around your tank's gonna sink. And it looks great. Like the ice cracks around it, you hear it crumble, the tank falls in. If there's any units that are standing nearby, they fall in the water and they try to swim for their lives, but they're doomed, it's too cold.
So I remember playing one of our multiplayer maps early in development, where I had originally played it in the spring. Now it's in the dead of winter. The rivers are now frozen over. My tanks and my troops can travel over them. The cover is all changed. It's a completely different experience. And that's what makes Company of Heroes so amazing.
Using line of sight, using smoke, using vaulting, using the True Sight system, you're going to have more opportunities to ambush and surprise players and use information warfare in a way that you've never seen in an RTS before.
We talk about every battle tells a story, and 6 years later, after the original Company of Heroes has been released, we still, as a team, when we play it, jump up out of our seats and run over to our opponents and talk about what just happened. It's never the same experience. Something always new and exciting is happening, and that really is what the Essence Engine brings to the table. It really allows us to provide that experience that you just never forget and always keep talking about.
With Company of Heroes 2, what we're really trying to bring is the visceral experience of what the biggest battles of World War II was, and that's the Eastern Front.
The Eastern Front was massive in scale, it was brutal, and it provides so much relevance to give each segment of the game that you play its own meaning.
There's a lot of thought that goes into making sure our maps are not only realistic for the time period and the location, but also fun from a gaming perspective.
What we're trying to do is create scenarios that allow for players to really utilize the terrain and building assets so that you can use those against another online player.
Let's say you take a victory point or you move to an area, there will be things that change. Like the enemy might get reinforcements and make a big push. You might get certain reinforcements by losing a point. You can have this battle back and forth, and you can really kind of make your own strategy to like what points you're going to hit. Are you going to like go for the deep VP so you can do some territory control, or are you just going to play a little bit slower of a game?
I think the real depth in multiplayer is the commander types. Each one has a different set of abilities that can be used, and each of those sets of abilities has strengths and weaknesses depending on where you're playing or what you're matched up against.
So you can really tailor your play style based on what type of play you like.
When I first started playing multiplayer, when I started working here, I was just getting greased. The guys from our team, there's a lot of guys on our team that actually like gather for lunch and watch the guys play it.
We actually had a demo map that we played on a while back that had this nice pawn with a victory point in the middle of it, so everyone's fighting over that.
They're coming across a river, hit the mines, boom, they go into the water, and they gotta re-tech. There's nothing worse than going across the river, you hit mines, your tank sinks, and you lose it in one fell swoop.
If a tank hits the field and you don't have something to counter that, the game isn't over. And in a lot of other games, if you don't have that hard counter available, you're done, you might as well quit and start over. With us, we want to make sure there's a bit of give with that, that comeback mechanic to allow people the chance to come back and continue fighting.
Asymmetric multiplayer and asymmetric development is kind of a key to the franchise. We want to present multiplayer armies that can span, you know, from 1941 to 1945, and so you see the emergence of, you know, big Soviet heavy tanks. You see the emergence and domination on the battlefield of T-34s.
Stalin's famous quote, which is "quantity has a quality all of its own," really reflects the feeling of the Soviet army that we have in Company of Heroes 2. They're a little bit more ragtag, their structures look like they've been sort of thrown together, and they're a little bit more on the seat of their pants in terms of how they approach things.
The Germans in Company of Heroes 2, they're at the end of their rope. They're an advanced faction. Their vehicles are technologically very advanced for the time. However, they've been at war for years, so the Germans are more defensive.
Another new thing that we've added to Company of Heroes 2 is this idea of progressing. And a big part of that is allowing players to unlock content that really gives them the opportunity to customize their armies.
What's great is these things will be based on the actual actions that they do. So if you use lots of mortars, suddenly you'll unlock things that have to do with mortars. If you like to play with half tracks and move guys around the battlefield, you'll unlock progression elements that deal with that. And they really get to make those choices as to what things they want to take into their next match or their next skirmish.
We're also adding what we call intel bulletins, and these were actually leaflets and pamphlets delivered to frontline soldiers that told them how to fight enemy vehicles.
As you work through the progression tree, you will unlock the right to earn intelligence bulletins. And as you do certain things in the game, you will then be equipped with more information about how to tackle those things and get simple bonuses against them.
The multiplayer gameplay and the campaign are intense experiences, and you know, you apply context to those experiences, and people sort of gravitate, you know, in a more emotional way to what you're presenting. And when I play a multiplayer game of Company of Heroes, the first thing I do is we get up and we talk about all the cool stuff we saw. And we're telling stories to each other about how the battle went.
We're all really passionate about the subject matter and really passionate about the work that we put into the game, so I think it's really going to show when people play it.
In Company Heroes 2, we did something we hadn't done before on previous games, and we actually took a research trip to Europe to visit some of the locations that we've been trying to portray in the game, to get a sense of the history and the culture and the scale, a feeling for these two armies that fought each other.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of games, and we always have a narrative, generally. Most of them, even when there's a seriousness to it, they're not quite as gritty or real as this one.
In Company Heroes 2, we've covered all of the well-known battles of the Eastern Front. Players are going to be able to fight in the ruins of Stalingrad, defend the city of Leningrad, ultimately push all the way to the Battle of Berlin. We base our story on history. There's a number of characters that we've kind of composited into ours. They're really trying to get their experiences across and, you know, portray the horror and terror of World War II in a way that is sensitive but unflinching.
The process for coming up with missions and making them happen, how we get variety like daytime, nighttime, what the actual mechanic is, what the player's gonna do on an ongoing basis is huge.
We've expanded quite a bit from Company of Heroes 1. We've got missions where you're leading a small group of snipers through a countryside, eliminating German officers. We've got a mission where you're sieging a castle.
They actually fought with modern weapons at some of these places. So you had tanks and machine guns where you might typically think about knights and, you know, swords.
The campaign itself is based on, you know, poring over history books, reading personal journals and records from soldiers. So although we can't recreate those battles exactly as they were, we try to capture some aspect, some element of what they might have felt like.
We want to pull people through playing one mission where maybe it's a little bit tough to deal with the elements that are in that mission because horrible things are happening. Horrible things happen on the Eastern Front. That's an authentic part of the experience. But at the same time, we know that needs to swing upwards, and so we'll look for something that's going to be like, what's going to be really fun? What's going to be really fun is storming through German lines with tanks. Yeah, let's do that. What I love is encapsulating that feel from mission to mission, even beats within mission, to get that swing and flow. And I love it when it comes together and you really feel like you played one mission and got like 3 different experiences.
When we talk about the burden of command and the influence of choice on the player, it goes right back to the very basics and how we design the armies. We want to give them choice and make some of these choices really challenging.
Some of those decisions involve whether to go back and rescue troops that have been lost, and in other situations, whether to blow up a bridge to prevent the Germans from crossing it, knowing full well that you have Russians on the other side.
At that point, you're just kind of like, wow, this is a whole different ball game.
Theater of war really is something where we're trying to extend the experience and the ways in which you can play the game.
And it's sort of just like, we know what happened in real life, so how did you handle it, and can you get the same result?
It's not competitive multiplayer. You don't have to worry about winning or losing. It's about you exposing yourself to the historical arc of World War II, but also to dig into some of the tactics that were used to help you become a better player, so when you're ready to jump into multiplayer, you have that experience behind you.
RTSs are inherently abstracted. You know, the camera's up high, and to deliver emotion and the kind of narrative experience that you want in a game is challenging.
You're playing from a distance. Often players feel like the hand of God. They feel like they're just kind of controlling these little tiny men, but we wanted the player to feel like each soldier mattered. We have real places with their distinct landmarks. Like when you fight in Berlin, there are places there that you would recognize if you've seen, you know, photos of Berlin from that time, or even been there and seen the ruins of those buildings.
We put a lot of detail in the battlefield, so you can zoom down and see it. And once you've seen it, you know it's there, and that, you know, level of detail, even with the camera pulled up, ties you to the experience, sort of immerses you in the game.
The feel of Company of Heroes comes from so many systems working together to immerse the player in that environment. The audio has always been incredible. The authenticity of the weapons, the movement of the soldiers, all of those things work together to pull the player into the game.
As you play through as a player, I think it's impossible not to get deeper and deeper in that experience. It's real, it's gritty, it's dark, and by the end of it, you can't help but feel attached to the outcome. And I think the gamers are going to be very pleased when they get their hands on it.